and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run, and we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run, and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Good day. Today's date is November the 1st, 2020. I'm Christopher James, and thank you for being here. It's been a while since we've been together, so I'm going to try and make this really nice and short and sweet for this evening. We have one incredible show that I'm going to put together here for you here today with incredible information to help bring people quickly up to speed to what is going on. First and foremost, I always forget to do the normal communications, which I should be doing, is that we need you all to subscribe. If you're new to this channel, you've got to subscribe not only to YouTube, but more importantly to warriorcalls.com and also to earthunited.global. These two sites here are going to be up and running with a software application in the very near future that is going to allow us all to be able to seamlessly connect together in the event that they do take us down off YouTube. Remember, we don't have the email communications or notifications or the system, the back-end system that YouTube has when you subscribe. This is why you have to subscribe to our websites. This will allow us, like I said, if they remove me, which I hopefully will not be the case after we talk about We the People in Google, that's going down tomorrow morning, Monday, in California, which is very exciting. But just shortly and quickly here, please subscribe to warriorcalls.com, subscribe to earthunited.global, and also I've also got to help people with health problems through HempWorks, which has incredible natural products to help you right across the full spectrum of any type of health issues that you're dealing with here. They have incredible products to help you that I stand behind, and you can buy through them. What also helps through me, again, reaching back to you to help you through awarriorcbd.com. That's the site that three sisters from Ohio have set up for me. God bless them. So if there's anything there that can also be helpful to you and your family, please, if you can, buy through that site for me. For people that are aware in Canada, that we cannot get the oils at this time, which is very disappointing, but we are working as hard as we can to get a workaround for that. But to pretty much everybody else, you are able to buy in the United States and other places around the world, you are able to get these oiled products. And last but not least, obviously donations. I hate asking for donations. Most of the time I do not mention it, but we are reaching a crunching point here moving forward that Jesse and I are going to be bringing forward actually a funding launch probably at the end of November here once all of our productions and that come out. There's a lot of incredible stuff going, but right now in the interim, every little penny helps. $1, $3, $5, whatever you can afford. It's much appreciated at this time. So speaking in donations, I want to just bring up here quickly because I've had some problems when people are giving me a donation, a direct e-transfer. I don't always get the email. Most of the time I don't get the email unless you include it within your message to me. Because it's a direct deposit through e-transfer, I don't have a password there, so that's why I don't get your email to respond. And I'm very meticulous about responding to everybody and thanking them very much for all their help. And there's been some incredible people over the last few weeks that I forgot the last week. I terribly apologize to a couple of people to mention this on my talk, so please just bear with me for a quick second here. I just want to thank Mark Oates. He's donated twice to me. Mark, thank you so much for everything. I'm truly humbled with all your support at this time. It means a great deal to me. Melvin Crow, Lynn Clyde, Charles D. Landa, Verona Burns, and Brian Wheeler. All of you are just incredible people. Thank you very much for making transfers this week to me. And again, I apologize in the future. If you or anyone else is going to be making transfers, please include your email within the message of that transfer, just so that I can respond back for you, because sometimes people don't always use the email that they've subscribed with, or you might have a different email that might not have your name in it that's within our system. And I found that when I tried to go back and look for some of these people like Mark Oates, I couldn't find you, Mark. There were several Marks that were in our subscription list, but I wasn't sure which email was yours. So again, thank you very much for everybody for doing that. That has really been incredible. And I also want to take at this time, I want to say an incredible special thanks to a man named Paul out in Edmonton. Paul came on board several months ago. He really stepped up to the plate with Jesse and I. And in the near future, I'm going to be able to share what Paul has actually done for me and my family in helping protect us. And it goes without saying that words cannot describe how grateful I am for what Paul has done here to reach out to my family and to help us at this time. So I just wanted to thank you, Paul, from the bottom of my heart. You're a great man, and I can't wait till I meet all of you that are out in BC and Edmonton and Calgary when we can actually put this truth to bed surrounding all this corruption that's been going on for a very, very long time. And lastly, before we get into this, I haven't talked about this for a while, but if you can imagine, I'm one guy here, okay? One man. And I've lately been getting an enormous amount of emails from people. Obviously, it's understandable that when you see this truth, I know the enormous amount of wrong and harm that's out there. There's millions of people, okay, that have been destroyed by the bar. There's millions of people that have been destroyed by this legal system that is out here, all right? I can't help you right now, okay, because I'm literally on the battlefield for the fight of our lives right now. And as you're going to see from this transmission, it's on. It's on right now. This is a call to everybody to wake up. Okay, to everybody to get involved here right now, because what's going to be shown here in this presentation here this evening is real time. Okay, I've got the solution here. We could save our world as little as in 3 weeks. That's how quickly we could do it. But the bar now has taken a strike, I guess you could say, against us. They've, what I like to call in poker, is a tell. Okay, they've tipped their hand. As we've talked about the Sukleski court, they want that kicked out of the courthouse quicker than you could shake a stick. Why? Because it's going to expose everything that's going on with the bar. And that is the battle that's before us right now. Not all this other nonsense with C-19 and all these other things that are going on. This is the fight right now, because once we retain and keep that court filing into that public courthouse and we move it forward without any more trespassing by these public servants, these people that have no standing, that is when this truth is going to be coming to light, okay? And that is when Justin Trudeau, Doug Ford, every man and woman that's acting as Attorney General across this country, every man and woman that's acting as Minister of Finance, Minister of Health Department, usually most of the upper cabinet members from these service corporations at a provincial and a federal level are all going to be rounded up, basically, okay, lawfully, because we have massive evidence of massive corruption that's been carried out against we the people for a very long time now, okay? But it has been expedited over the last 9 months since the C-19 complete deceit that has been brought out into this world. And we have the evidence from that too now, that we've been lied to across the board, okay? So before we get into the next thing, here's another big thing that I want to discuss with everybody that is absolutely huge. This Monday, as I talked about briefly, We the People versus Google is going down in a California court at 9 a.m. That's tomorrow, and 2020, and it's going to be fantastic. The beauty of this is that you'll see that the link that I've got there that was given to me, this is going to be for anyone around the world can log in, okay? They're telling you not to record it. So be respectful of that, but you're able to listen in at what is going on. And what this is ultimately about, for those of you that weren't aware, is that a couple of weeks ago, YouTube, up to its usual antics, purged 14 or 15 of the top YouTube channels. One of them, very, very dear man to me, is Sean over at SGReport, okay, .com. And he had an incredible YouTube site, 740,000 subscribers, 10 years of his work, okay, and YouTube pulled it without any strikes he had in his account or anything. Why did they do that? Because they were releasing and exposing the massive fraud and corruption surrounding the Biden Hunter, okay, and the other horrific things that are going on surrounding that. And so were all these other multiple YouTube channels. So they pulled them down. So what they did is they raised, in a very short time, $130,000. They got a top woman acting as a lawyer. I know we're talking about law here, but we have to throw everything we can at this right now to stop it. And this is a wonderful move that they've done. They're looking to get an injunction put in place on Monday against Google. They're going after them ultimately because of their terms of service. Okay, they breached their terms of service. Well, right across the board. It's like with me pulling down my videos, the last one that went up that was simply a logistics, 101, basics logistics 101 video that was put up. They pulled it off my site and they took me down for another 2 more weeks. I can't post. I can't upload anything. I can't do any live streams. I'm completely dead on that channel. That's why I'm pre-recording this now. It's being uploaded to BitChute, and then eventually it will make it over my way to my YouTube channel. Also, to let everybody know that I've got a system in place, again through Paul, it looks like, that we're going to be able to carry on our live streams outside of Google, okay? And that's what I'm looking to do. I should be able to do up to 10,000 people, I think they said, if I'm so blessed enough to get that many people that wish to come out and hear me in the near future, which I sure hope it's more than 10,000, because we need millions of people right now understanding this truth that I'm laying down here right now before everyone here this evening. So let's get into this, okay? But again, tomorrow morning is a very important morning if you can. It's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. The link is right there on the page here. So please get yourself involved and let's get after this and let's bring all this corruption out and into the light and let's really stick it back to this entity known as Google that's been doing an enormous wrong and harm to we the people. And God bless Sean. God bless all the other YouTubers who are standing up unified against this evil right now, because I'm standing fully with them. And I look forward to seeing this getting corrected. So say a prayer. Prayer is very important and very powerful in this world. And tomorrow we're all going to need it, because this is something very nefarious that's been going on. And this is going to put a plug in the hole from Google from doing in YouTube what they've been doing for a very long time now, blocking the truth from coming forward. I won't be getting strikes like I've been getting, and I'll really be able to turn this up several notches. This is very important in our world right now, and what's been going on that Google and YouTube's been doing is completely in breach of their terms and their services, and that's going to be brought out into the light tomorrow. So I hope everybody will watch it. So let's get into this, shall we?
Fine speech. Now what do we do?
Just be yourselves.
Where are you going?
I'm going to pick a fight.
Well, we didn't get dressed up for nothing.
First, we're going to follow up on the Sukleski court. For those of you that are not familiar, please go back to my earlier broadcasts. There's a gentleman by the name of Michael Sukleski, and he came to me with a matter surrounding his father's estate. And what happened is that multiple lawyers and 2 justices, 2 people acting as justices, were committing enormous wrong and harm, trespassing against this man, administrating property without right, his estate. Now, he started out in a legal proceeding, and then he came across my material, as others have, and then they started to learn that what is actually going on in our public courthouses is complete fraud. Okay? We're all being lied to across the board. These people wearing the black robes, they're not our friends. They're part of a private society, and every single one of them is corrupt. Okay? And we need to put the boots to them now in writing and drag them out into the light with this massive corruption, and that's what's about to go down this week. So I'm just covering what's happened recently. What happened over the last few weeks is that we've had some communications that have gone on. The claim went in on September the 12th, okay, that we have here for people that aren't aware of that one. Let's just jump to this one here. I'll just make sure that my windows and everything are working great. That's terrific. So this is the claim that we put in that we put into the courthouse there on September the 12th, okay? People that are aware of this, you can go back and you can see the filing. It's on my website for awarriorcalls.com. On the download section, it's also case number 3, I believe, that is on the website. Please download this PDF. It's paramount that everybody has it, okay, because it is educating everybody very quickly to what is actually going on and how to properly file a claim and move your court in a public courthouse. And we need to stop these parasites that have been blocking us for a very long time, called bar members. And as you're going to see again here today, they've trespassed against us. They're attacking us. They've what I would like to call a tell. They've basically committed, like in poker, okay, last week, letting us know that they want this out of the courthouse as soon as possible. So we're going to get into this. So this is the original claim. As you know, there was a notice of liability that was on top of this, but this is the claim that we have here. So what happened this past week on Wednesday, Michael and I got an email communication. This came from the woman acting as registrar. Okay, her name is Deborah, I think is her name. I looked her name up here. Yeah, her name is Deborah, it appears, is this woman acting as registrar at the Milton Courthouse in Ontario. All right, that's where this claim, this court, the Sukleski court, a common law claim that's been established, is laying. Okay, we have to know the magnitude of this, is that this has never occurred in well over 100 years, if not more, okay? We're talking, last I was told again, was in the late 1800s when we had something even remotely similar to a common law court that was actually moving in this country, and I believe it was dealing with the native people. That was the information that I was given a while ago. But the long and the short of it is that from 1934, when the birth certificates, when this incredible system of corruption and trespassing against the consciousness of man occurred, taking from us our understanding of law and the real power that we truly have when we access one of the most powerful buildings in our countries, and that is the public courthouse. That's where we all go to fight, okay? Not physically, but to fight, to battle, to correct wrong and harm that's occurring in our world. Doing it honorably, doing it powerfully, and doing it with the evidence laid bare before a jury of our peers. That's ultimately what this is about. This is ultimately what the Sukleski Court has achieved right now, and now this system of corruption that's been stealing from us, that's been committing massive fraud in all our public courthouses for many years now, they're up against the wall. And this is the call, this is a warrior's call to everybody. You've got to step up right now and into the light and hold these people accountable with me, okay, if they try and do anything more surrounding this claim. So this is what came to us, okay? So let's see if you can start to understand here from the teachings, all right, that we've been discussing here, all right? We've been talking about the importance that nobody can administrate property without right, okay? The Sukleski Court, which has been verified by all these people that it actually exists at the Milton Courthouse. We have had, over the last few weeks, we've had several of these lawyers, as we've talked about, they've been writing into the registrar and they've been asking her to remove the court file, okay, from the public courthouse. Why? Because it's not falling under the rules of civil procedure. Now, this is very disturbing, this letter, in several capacities. So let's talk the first part of it. First, we start right at the top here, okay? We just start from this document. Who wrote this? Michael and I didn't wrote it. So the next question is, who has standing in your court when a document is being placed into that court file? Well, anybody that is a party to it, okay? And a party to it isn't a man or woman that acts as a robe, that wears a robe, that's supposed to be providing public services to us, good faith services at a public courthouse, okay? A man or woman that wears the robes in our public courthouse, they have no standing in this. They are supposed to oversee and see that this process is moved forward honorably, lawfully, and correctly, that there's no shenanigans going on. And it's a court of records. It's recorded. That's what a court of record means, okay? So this is a common law court moving under, it's a court of record moving under the common law, and this is a jury trial by jury, okay? What that means, the jury of our peers is going to appear, and the 12 people, or 25 if it's a grand jury, they are going to be the ones that make the decision. They're going to decide whether our claim that we've laid at this public courthouse is true or not. Not some man or woman that's wearing a robe, not some man or woman that's part of a society which Michael and I are not part of, which is the bar, which we all know is corrupt to the core and what it's doing in our public courthouses, as my website and many multiple communications now have brought forth. Again, if this is your first time to my site or first time hearing me speak, you need to go back and watch the 4 foundational knowledge videos and then jump on the live streams that began on August 6th, doing one a week up until this one here right now. And you will be fast-tracked and understand exactly what is going on in the here and now. So the first thing we do now when we look at this document that's up on your screen, this is the communication that Michael and I received this week on Wednesday, okay? Right from the start, do you notice something? Ontario Superior Court of Justice. Well, wait a second, Bob or Susie. It says in the Sukleski Court. See, this is our filing here. This is how it is supposed to look at. It doesn't leave this capacity up here, okay? The I-Man Michael, I-Man Christopher. See how it's laid out there? Well, look what they've done here. There's no one in this in Sukleski Court. Okay, again, who wrote this document? We don't know who it is, so it needs to be removed from our court file immediately. Okay, now I have not responded. Normally, I respond immediately the day when we would get something, or by the next day at the latest. But because this is very serious now, this is everything we've been working for, people, that I've been working towards for 20 years. It's now coming to a head now with this case. This is when the rubber hits the road. They've tweaked. You know, I shouldn't say tweaked, they've twitched. You could say they flinched. And now they've put out this communication to Michael and I. So the first thing that they've done is they've trespassed on the case. I don't care what man or woman wears a robe at that public courthouse. They have no business putting a document into our court file. And that's what's happened here. Now, this came from the registrar, okay? The woman acting as registrar as well. And it says here, you can see right from the top as we've been reading and learning, and I've been sharing with you the importance of capitalization and what they're doing. Words on a piece of paper in their world mean everything. Words on a piece of paper that a man or woman puts in for their common law claim, it doesn't matter if it's an upper or lower. You should learn the difference between upper and lower. But again, if you spell a word wrong, or if it's written in hieroglyphics, or if it's written in all caps, the whole tile claim, at the end of the day, that does not matter when you present your claim before a jury of your peers. Okay, because you as a man or woman are placed under oath or affirmation, and you have to viva voce on the court. okay? You have to speak in open court, and you have to lay your evidence bare of this claim that you're bringing to this courthouse through your court be true. It's that simple. But what are they doing here? Well, you can see right at the top here. See, I like to rub in our face. First, we don't have in the Sukleski court here, so it's not even got the correct. So what if they've written the file number correctly here, right? It always comes down to, remember that one word? The three words we address? Trespass, property, and what's the third one? Who? Who wrote this? That's the first question you ask, right? Well, we know who wrote it was the registrar. She's written it incorrectly. Now you go to I, man, Michael. See that? The I's been capitalized. See what they do? See their level of ignorance that they're doing? They may be doing this just to smite us or whatever, but it also just maybe, well, it's not obviously that their computer doesn't allow them to type a small little I there because they were able to do it in the Michael and also in the Christopher. So you can see they've done that there. But the bottom line is, remember, this is why I don't let people get caught up in it. We do not know who this woman is that put this into it. We do know who she is, but she had no business putting this paperwork, okay, into her property, into our property. She has no standing on it. Remember, she's there to oversee, if she's been the woman or man that's assigned to this case, to move it through the process at that public courthouse. So you can see right away they changed the I's to uppercase. I really don't care. And then it says and. Well, there's no and with me. And then we get into it here. These are the people, again, that we've done. I'm surprised they kept that the same. But then it says, notice that proceeding or motion may be stayed or dismissed. Oh, really? Really? You have the jurisdiction to remove a man's claim from a public courthouse before it is presented before the people? See, this is the parasites that the bar do. And as you move down to it, now we get into it, right? The court is considering, oh, stop a second. The court. Whose court? Whose court is considering this? Because the Sukleski court doesn't have to consider it. It has no business being in the Sukleski court. The Sukleski court is going to remove this immediately, all right, as is going to be written and communicated to this woman who's in a lot of trouble right now for what she's been doing and not doing, as you're going to see here once we get further into this document, what's been going on over the last 3 weeks, as our property has been trespassed upon left and right by these repugnant bar members, one of them from the Attorney General's office, a real piece of work. Okay, so it says here, the court, we know now, well, whose court? You always say, well, whose court are we talking about here, Bob or Susie? We're not talking about the Sukleski court because it would say the Sukleski court is considering, and then we've already considered what's going to go on with this document. It's out of there, okay? It's out. Considering making an order, staying or dismissing the proceeding or motion, here we go, under Rule 2.1 or Rule of 2, whatever it is, because it appears on its face to be frivolous or vexatious or otherwise an abuse of the process of the court. Number one, it's not your court. It's two people moving their court before a jury of our peers, not your court. Secondly, this is what they always like to throw out there, that it appears on its face to be frivolous or vexatious. Well, this is how it works, Bob or Susie. If our claims that we put forward before a jury of our peers are vexatious and frivolous, well, guess what? That jury's going to throw the book at us. And everything that we're going after with these people, which is huge, these people all need to be locked up for minimum 20 years for what they're doing. All of them, okay? And some of them that are higher up in this organization known as the bar, well, let's just say there's a thing that's called a rope, okay, that I have every confidence in my jury of my peers that if they see this enormous wrong and harm that's been going on, they're going to go back also and look at what these people have also been adjudicating on their entire careers to get themselves up to these positions of these places of supposed to be incredible honor, all right? And they've used this power, these places of public, a public presence to basically continue this fraud against all of us. It's horrific when you understand, as people are starting to see now, what is going on. So it says here, this proceeding or motion will be stayed or dismissed. Oh, really? Who are they to rule over this before it's even been brought into the court? This is why I'm showing you now in real time. This is what these parasites have been doing from day one. Okay, this is why our public courthouses are compromised, because we, the people, are being blocked every single time when we have verified truth, where we're making a claim and we're standing under full liability. Okay, I'm prepared to be locked up for the rest of my life for 20 years. Okay, same thing that these people deserve here. And if they deserve a rope around their neck for what they've done, well, that's for the jury to decide again at the end of the day. But that will also fall back on me, because I have no business laying a claim in a public courthouse if it's not true. Now, I've put my wet signature to it, as has Michael, and we're standing there under full liability. It's very important that you understand and know that. Okay? Now, this woman that's written this letter, she has no standing in this case, acting as the registrar. So she says, the proceeding or motion will be stayed or dismissed unless within 15 days of receiving this notice, I'm not a you, I'm a man, file with the court. Whose court? Your court? You haven't established a court. We have nothing to do with your court. A written submission, submit. I'm not submitting to you. you're going to get this crap out of our property here that's laying at this public courthouse. Okay, you got to understand that case file is your property, right? That filing is your property. Nobody can trespass upon it. Remember I taught you the two different trespasses? There's the trespass that covers everything under the sun, which you would identify it as from breach of contract, damage your property, terrorism, whatever it's going to be. But then there's one other type of trespass, and this is what we're showing you right now in real time. This is called trespass on the case, and it happens when somebody who's acting and working in a public servant capacity at our public courthouses does something very disturbing, okay? They put paperwork in where it shouldn't belong, into another case file, or they're trying to move paperwork around or hide communications that are supposed to be placed into that court file, which has occurred here, as we're just going to see. So it says, no more than 10 pages in length responding to this notice. If you do not file a written submission that complies with this notice and rule, boop, 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 boop. Remember, that rule is all under what? The rules of civil procedure, what we addressed last week. Very succinctly and very simply. Everybody should know now. This is what the entire world must know. We all must know this truth, and we must act upon it. The rules of civil procedure are being used to block we the people from moving courts and seeking the administration of justice. Okay? Everybody who's looked at this claim can tell that what Michael and I are doing, we're going to destroy these people once we get them into court. Very simply, very powerfully, in the matter of a couple of minutes. That's how quickly this is going to go down, because they have to answer those three questions. Who claimed Michael's property? Who can administrate property without right? And you better damn well produce that obligation upon which you rely. That the Estate Act, that the Justice Act, that any acts or rules of civil procedures in there as well apply to we the people. Right? They only apply to us unless we consented to it, or that there's a contract that they're going to produce with our wet signature. And they don't have that. And this is why the bar is terrified, and this is what we need to totally liquidate the bar into oblivion. Its time has come, this truth, and also the time to remove the bar from our public courthouses in dealing with anything that has to do with a man or a woman or wrong or harm that is occurring to them. So it says here, a copy of your submission may be given to any other party if the court directs it. Okay, again, it's not our court. So basically, you're going to see, now this came from the local registrar. Now, what was this based on here? You can see she wrote to Michael and I, all right? And then this other woman, Angela Casey, who's been a real piece of work since this thing began. She's one of the lawyers, and I really look forward to getting her into court, because someone like her who is just so, let me just say, they deserve everything they're going to get in this public courthouse once it starts to move forward. So this is what came with it. This is what endorsement, I don't know what it is. It's the judge is writing something where they've looked at the file, right? No one appearing. It says, the court has received correspondence. Well, again, the court. Whose court? See, they're ultimately putting down here within this own internal communication false information. They're not being true to the court that has actually been filed, right? Has received a correspondence from L. Glenn Frelich. Remember, that's that twit that works at the Attorney General's office, right? Where they're all corrupt in there and what they're doing to the people in this country right now once we get later into this with Bill 218. This Glenn Freck, he has as much jurisdiction or as much standing in this case as Bob or Susie out there that's walking the street, or even anyone, man or woman, that's wearing the black robe. But the problem is here is that the people wearing the black robes, they're all buddies with the Attorney General's offices. Why? Because they're all part of the secret society that we're not involved with. Okay? And that's why I show you this, okay? The part that's very disturbing here is that it says this dated September the 29th, 2020, and from Lucas E. Lang, dated September 29th, October 1st, and October 8th, between the two counsels. So that was 4 lawyer communications that came in they placed into our court file that they have no jurisdiction to do. Remember, Glenn L. Frelich, is he listed? Is he named in the Sukleski court here? Right? You see Glenn's name there? Nope. I don't see his name there. Frelich. Do you see this Glenn E. whatever is, again, Lung name there? Nope. He's not there. So just think logically here and simply. Where do these people have standing? Is that how our public courthouses work? That when we file a claim, that people that have no standing in it can just start filing crap into it and start jerking us around? The part that's really disturbing here is when you look at this here, is that they go, between the two counsel, they represent all defendants. Where does it say defendants? It's the people that we're dealing here. See what they're doing? They're always trying to drag it over into the legal world with their legal BS and language. Okay? It doesn't exist. Now, for those of you that have been following everything, as it says here, represent all dependents, respondents. Yeah, there's another word, respondents. Anything about a man or woman they put in here. That this action be dismissed pursuant to rule, there's a rule again, of the rules of civil procedure on the basis that this action is frivolous, vexatious, and or an abuse of the process of the court. Okay, so again, here we have that everybody can clearly see that for almost 4 months now, okay, if not more, Michael and I have been communicating to these people, you got to produce this obligation that we the people, that's the contract, that we are bound by these rules of civil procedure. And everybody knows now that we're not. Okay, the rules of civil procedure only apply to the legal world, which is the world of the dead, that which is incorporated. Michael and I, we're not incorporated. We are people accessing a public courthouse, moving a verified claim against other people. And now we've got people from their society who run and control the courthouses looking to kick it out, to protect their brethren, you know, from their little succinct, corrupt crap that they've been doing for a very long time now. And this is why we must pull this out into the light and stop this from ever happening again. Because the minute that we move the bar out of the way, people, as I've said to everyone needs to understand something. Okay, and this is why everyone that's been writing to me asking for help in that. You know, I can't help everybody right now because what I'm doing right now in the here and now is going to save our world. That's how close we are to this. In the next 2-3 weeks, we can get this done. It is that powerful because the second that the bar is moved out of the way, what do you think is going to be happening? The man before you here is going to be moving warrants against Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford, okay? And Doug Downey, especially, the people in Ontario here. And we are going to shed a very bright light on what has been going on here like never before. Okay, we're not only going to expose the C-19 because I've got all the evidence of that from Dr. Judy Mikovits and also Dolores Cahill, and many other incredible people that have brought truth forward, from the PCR test to the Nobel Peace Prize winner who created it, telling everybody that these tests are not supposed to be used for anything in this capacity. And at the end of the day, there is no virus. Okay, this is the colossal lie that we've been all fed here. And it all comes down to this bar that's blocking all this truth from coming forward, as you're starting to see here within Michael's case. So this is how they write to you, okay? So they say that we have 15 days. Well, the fact of the matter is they're not making the rules, or they're not telling us when we have to move our claim. We can move it when we want and how we want. Have the 21 days passed? Yes. I had some people ask a question, send me some emails this week. Chris, the 21 days have passed. How come you've not moved this claim? Well, we've not moved this claim because we're waiting for this. I knew they were going to do this, okay? And it's all about timing, okay? I've got multiple things that are moving now in parallel with each other on an enormous level, okay? And my coordinating all this right now, that's for those of you. If you haven't, I need you to write, again, from the show from last week, to Brad Blair, his lawyer, Julian, and you also need to write to the man, Randy Hillier. He's the MPP, or the MP out in Lennox, Addington, Kingston. He's an incredible man. I need to sit down with these two people face to face immediately. Once I can sit down with them, they will be briefed of what you've learned over the last several months from me, but they're also going to be given some enormous truth around surrounding this entire pandemic that was a complete lie, okay? That's destroyed all these businesses, people's lives, and now they're not stopping. As I said, when you go back and you look at my original presentations on this back in February when I spoke on that channel, even go back as far as my initial video that I recorded for the website when it was opening up. Must tell people, I looked at that the other day and went, oh my God, I really had quite the chunky cheeks. So, but I said, it's great. I've lost 45 pounds now and I'm feeling fantastic. I'm ready for this fight now. Okay, mind, body, and soul, I'm good to go here, people. So everything happens for a reason and at the right time. But it was interesting when I go back and I look at that upload that went in November of 2019. That was when my website was actually supposed to launch. And it didn't launch, but eventually it came out later. But you can see back then, when you go and watch that, it tells you where I was at, understanding what was coming, okay? And there's a lot more that I've kept back that we're going to start to bring out in the next few weeks here. So this is what's happened. They've trespassed on the case, and they have no business doing this, okay? So Michael and I, we're going to respond to this week, and then I'm going to do a follow-up show. I think we're going to try and do a live stream on Thursday, which is Thursday the 5th of November, okay? We're going to try it for the first time with this new system with Paul out in Edmonton. I will be giving links to everybody if you're signed up. That's why you have to subscribe, so that we can have these incredible fluent communications with you, all offline. In the event that they pull my YouTube channel down or any other nefarious things that happen, we can still reach out and connect with you and bring these truths to you in real time. Because now's when the rubber hits the road. This is when we need the people to be all over all of them that are doing this at this public courthouse, okay? So, and I would also like to say to everybody, Michael sends his love and his thanks again for all your support and kindness and your incredible words of encouragement as we've been moving forward on this. We've got this. We've got these people nailed to sites with it, and they're terrified. But everything that I've talked about now for 4 months, now you're seeing everything that I've said that's happened. Same thing with the Maneri case. Brent and Kathy, they did the same thing with theirs, but it's different this time, as I said, because I've got you here backing me. Okay, so that's where we're at the Sokleski Court. We'll follow back up. We will follow back up with that. And again, what I also, sorry, before I get off that, I want to just jump back to it, is that the registrar, okay? I need to show this here again. Okay. Sorry. In this communication here, and all this here that's been written down here, does anybody see what's missing from it? Do you see what's missing from it? You go back and you watch my last show. Okay? What's missing from it, and this is the part that's very disturbing. Michael and I, we have communicated 3 times to this woman acting as registrar to remove these communications, which she's quoted here, were placed into this court file. Do you see any mention of that we wrote to her to remove them? No. There's nothing. See how sickening this is? This woman right now is looking, it's a substantial claim moved against her that's acting as the registrar. Okay, I'm not going to say right now what's going to happen. Okay, I want you to see it in the communication when it goes out fully this Wednesday, when it gets mailed out to everybody. That's when we'll do the follow-up show on the Thursday, and I'll be able to share and show with everybody the power of what we're doing here right now. And this is the big moment, people. This is when we all got to get active. Everybody's got to get all over these people through phone calls, through emails, through faxes. You've got to let them know you know that this has gone down, and you let them know that we're watching, okay? Because they are not going to kick this out of this court this time. And I'm very confident that once I sit down, like I say, with Randy Hillier, and I sit down with Brad Blair, that's when this thing is really going to turn the corner for all of us, okay? We need these people on side of us, because this truth, this single truth, needs to be brought into simply the legislator by Randy Hillier. Imagine if Randy brings it up and brings that one question forward, that the people of this country are being blocked from moving their claims against their fellow man and woman who have caused enormous wrong and harm with them. Why? Because the rules of civil procedure from a society to which we do not belong to, the majority of people in this country, not Canadians, people, man and woman, who do not belong to this bar, are being blocked because of that one truth. Okay? That one action. That's all the bar's got. This is all they've used against us. See how they're doing this again? Right? And that's why you need to understand the power of what I've laid now that's laying at this courthouse. We need the entire country to be all over this, to see this. Because the minute that we bring to the light that those rules of civil procedure don't apply to we the people, as I said, the bar's out of the way and it's game on. Okay? So I apologize for that. Had to come back to it because I just wasn't quite, I wanted to make sure that I was very thorough in bringing that to your attention. Let's do another follow-up here. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I would like to, if you have not seen on my website, there's some recent videos with Amina Motella, who's an incredible woman. Through her show, I brought on a gentleman by the name of Tim, who runs a water shop here in Burlington, Ontario. Tim had, a long and short of it, he had a trespass that occurred against him from some bylaw officers last week, 2 weeks ago, and they made a woman in his store cry. Again, you should go and look at the videos that are already uploaded. It explains and goes through that, and this is actually the follow-up now to see what has happened. So there's Tim on the left with the hat, and there's Amina, who's, again, a wonderful woman, and we're just going to get into this now, okay? So what happened is, I got to bring up my PDF here so I can see that everything is pretty good here. This is the first communication that went to Marion Mead Ward, okay? She's the woman that's acting as mayor for the city of Burlington. So what is her position actually? She's just a woman who works for a service corporation, no different than McDonald's, Tim Hortons, Burger King, all right? She's got agents and officers under her control, and no different than McDonald's, Burger King, or Tim Hortons. Not a damn thing that she puts pen to paper, not a damn thing that comes out of her trap or any other people. And pardon if I'm being a little bit hard, if it seems that way, it's because this woman is corrupt beyond. Wait till you see what's going to come out. What this woman's been involved in, the malfeasance, the trespass that's gone on. She's bared witness to fraud that's occurred. She's done nothing. She's been involved in the fraud that's occurred and done nothing. And even when it's been brought to her in spades, she's turned a blind eye and allowed enormous wrong and harm to multiple people being terrorized because of her actions. Okay? It's absolutely horrific when I get to bring that also into the courthouse as well. However, so what happened is that when this trespass occurred, the bylaw officer made this woman cry in the store, and then they were looking to come back the following Monday. This was on a Wednesday, I think, that it happened. And it was Tuesday, October the 20th. I just learned to read the letter that's there. So I show this to everybody because this is the first Okay, this is the first communication that went to Marion Meade. It's also on the website that you can download to read it as well. These will all be up there, and it always comes down to that you demand that Marion or any man or woman under their control claim that I property, right? Marion or any man or woman under your control can administrate property without right, and you got to produce that obligation that exists with the Service Corporation Burlington that relinquishes rights, okay? That they can administrate over him, that they can order him around. Okay, so we went over this first communication last week. Okay, pardon me. This is actually the second notice. There's the first one there that went out from Tim. You can see the format, right? It's all pretty straightforward here. It went to him there. This was also very powerful because we gave them the links exposing that the C-19 is completely fraud. The doctors from around the world, God bless them, they're coming forward now, and they're telling the world that all of this is lies, all of this is deceit. There is no pandemic, and that there's something else very nefarious that's going on here. We know what it is. I've known what it is for a very long time, and that's why it's paramount that we get this court case with Zufleski back in there right now and moving forward. Now is the time to get this moving in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Once we can get that moving, look out, because like I said, that's when all of this stuff gets brought out to the light like that. So there's the first communication that everyone could see, just to quickly go over it, right? And then at the end of it there, it has the notice that we have here. Okay, it has a notice in the bottom. Let me just bring that down a bit. Pain in the butt. Okay, so here's the notice that followed it. All right, you can go back and you can read those later on. That's no problem. Here's the second notice. Okay, we wrote this because we didn't hear anything back from her. So the first one went out on October the 20th, right? 4 days later, we wrote a letter on October the 27th. Again, we're saying at the top here, trespass, because that's what Marion Meade's liable for here, what agents and officers under her control have done. Okay, then you see it's the second notice of liability. Marianne, again, this is the second letter to the woman who acts as mayor for the Service Corporation Burlington. Then we go back and we're just basically redressing what was in the first letter communication again. Okay, it's the very same document all the way through, so she's got the same copy of it with the notice, so you can see it, except the only difference here is it says second notice of liability. Okay, and the word liability is spelt wrong this time, which means I'm getting better at this. Anyways, and then so finally what happened is that well, that didn't happen. What I got to show you here is that on that's the next scene I got to bring up here. Sorry. What happened then is that this week, this is what we received. Okay, this came in from a Davern Carey at 9:53 a.m. on Wednesday, October the 28th. So this came in a day after Marion got a second notice to her. Remember, I told you this is why you notice them 3 times, okay? If they don't respond to you, you're going to move your claim court regardless. But when they respond, that's when you can engage with them and address what's going on. This communication response is like every single other one from this repugnant entity called the City of Burlington. I want people to know something, is that I have a long-standing history with this organization, and the last 3 mayors that have all been acting as mayors for the Service Corporation are in a lot of trouble. They're all involved in the same fraud that Marion Meade's been involved in. They've all caused enormous malfeasance against the people, okay? And again, I went to move a claim in court against them a little over a year ago, just before, actually, it would have been May before I moved the Maneri court, so it would have been May of 2019. I went to the Milton Courthouse again there, and I'm going to do a follow-up show on that very quickly, separately, but I'll just tell you this, that when I was moving a private prosecution under common law, the man who was acting as the justice of the peace, who was supposed to receive that claim and move that process through that courthouse like lightning, because at that time he's supposed to decide whether warrants or summons are supposed to be put out at that time, this man ran from the bench. Okay, and he says at the end, I have no jurisdiction, and I've got the how should we say, the documents that show all of this, the communications, the transcript, and that's another story, that when I tell you what they did with the transcript and jerking me around for 30 days, okay, not wanting to give it to us. Then when they finally handed it to us, it looked like somebody had crumpled it up, thrown it in the garbage, and then when we came in to finally get it, it's like they got caught, right? And they pulled it out of the garbage and they tried to straighten it out. But anyways, I just want people to know this, that I do have a history with the City of Burlington. There's enormous wrong and harm going on right now in my street, okay? The people on my street have been terrorized by this Service Corporation, the planning department, and multiple people in councils, current and prior, okay, that are looking at, again, once I bring this into the light, it also includes a church as well. Repugnant people from a Dutch church that are supposed to be the trustees. Okay, when you see what they've done here, it's just horrific. But why I'm telling you this is because these are the type of communications that you get from the city. Okay, the City of Burlington, like many other municipalities, but the City of Burlington just, has a mantra. Okay, it's supposed to be known as the City of Hope. Okay, and it's become the city of horseshit. Pardon my language. Why? Because of all this corruption that's going on. Because we have all these people working for a service corporation that have this culture of entitlement, that they actually think that anything that they put to paper, because of their little pissy job descriptions that they've got, that they can come out into the public and they can order us around, they can do whatever they want, they can make older women cry like they did in Tim's store. Okay, these bylaw officers. That's why I loathe these people, because they are ignorant, they're repugnant, and when you lay the truth down in front of them, they just don't care, and that is why we require that public courthouse. On and for the record, so everyone, just so I don't forget, because there's a lot of truth that I have to give people. I want everyone to know that Marion Mead was given a communication verifying to her over a year ago that our public courthouses, this is what happened when I was blocked that day to move that claim surrounding this thing that was going on in my neighborhood here with this church, okay, and this horrific development that is all based on fraud and what they did. I went to Marion Mead after this man who was wearing the robe ran from the bench, saying he had no jurisdiction. I told her that we, the people, then and there, were being blocked from accessing our public courthouse. And in that moment, she is the highest, supposed to be the most honorable man or woman in the region for the city of Burlington. She has a duty to the people that when she's told that the people are being blocked from it, she needs to be all over that. Instead, what did she do again? Just like she's done with this, she fluffed it off, okay? She didn't bother to follow through with anything. And Marion Mead, I might as well put it on the record now as well. She was also sat with me and a past police officer, and we laid forth the evidence, concrete evidence of the human trafficking that's occurring at St. Joseph's Hospital and every hospital around this world. Like you've all been shown here now with the unlawful conversion that happens with these birth certificates and records and documents that are being created without full consent or knowledge of we the people. She's been given everything. So that's what I mean when you see, and it was all videotaped too, which is beautiful. So I don't leave any stone unturned. So when I get her into court, she's done. Okay? And that's where this hard reset has to start. It has to start at the local level and work its way back up through all this corruption with we the people. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So here's what we got from this woman, Darren Carey. Okay? Good morning. As a follow-up to the letter sent to the office of the mayor, I wanted to clarify the rules and regulations regarding bylaw officers. That's like someone from McDonald's writing to, I want to clarify the rules and regulations of our McDonald's agents. I don't give a rat's arse what your agents and officers do. I got nothing to do with your corporation, right? Bylaw officers have the legal right. Ding, 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 ding. Does legal apply to a man or woman? No, it doesn't. So that gets knocked out of the window right there. She has no right. She's operating in a legal capacity. That's right. She's acting as a fiction. But she has no business coming out into the world and trespassing against her fellow man or woman. Bylaw officers have a legal right to attend your site, investigate matters pertaining to municipal bylaws or provincial orders, all BS. These powers are granted under, you ready for this? The Ontario Municipal Act. Okay, this is how simple this is to tear down when you get them into court. Does your name appear on that Municipal Act? No. You got a contract with me, as we've written, as you see the notices and the communications now 3 times to Marion Mead, produce the obligation upon which you rely, Marianne, or any officer agent under your control. All right, to trying to be administrating these rules, these Ontario Municipal Act over we the people. It's that powerful, people, and it's that simple. Not a damn thing that comes out of Doug Ford's mouth or any man or woman that acts as premier or any of their staff or agents or officers of that service corporation. That's what the government of Ontario is. It's Ontario. It's a service corporation. They've even got Service Ontario, right? They're putting it right in your face. You got to understand these things. I realize I'm going over that again, but it's important that you understand how powerful that simple truth is. Unless your name or wet signature appears that they have a contract with you, then nothing that these people say or do applies to you. It says you will note the bylaw also has information related to enforcement of the bylaw and powers of the bylaw officers. Well, they have no power whatsoever over we the people. Okay, see, this is what she included at the top here. Mask bylaw that came out in June, it looked like, or sometime of, I don't know when it came out actually. Then there's amended mask bylaw. Oh, that came out in July 23. And then there's the mask bylaw amendment. I guess that's the final one now that came out shortly after that. So see, that's these people that are working at the service corporation who are all ignorant beyond belief. They don't understand the lie that's been going on. They're too dumb to figure out what's actually going on here. They're willfully ignoring the evidence been laid forward to them. That's why these communications that I've given to Marianne Mead, that's why those links were in there, okay? Because I'm getting her on more fronts, not just the trespass that she's done against Tim. That's why you include within these communications powerful links to these people, because the notice covers all of it. Okay, the notice is saying, did you not receive this communication that the COVID, or pardon me, the C-19 thing is not all what it's supposed to be? Here are the doctors. Here's the evidence. They have a duty and an obligation because they're, again, like the courts, supposed to be providing fair, good faith duty services to we the people, and they're not doing that. So she goes on here. She gives you the laws and the statute. That doesn't apply to us. It's garbage. Then she goes, the officers attended your site based on a complaint. Nope. It was based on a complaint. Well, a complaint from some man or woman that was in Tim's store because his nephew did not have his mask on. And Tim is very much aware of exactly what's going on here. Okay? So that's why we've done this action here and the fraud that's going around this C-19. Complaint regarding the City of Burlington mask bylaw. Well, again, the City of Burlington, that's a corporation, their bylaw number. It doesn't mean jack diddly squat to you or me. Unless our name's on it, forget it. And we'll talk about licensing in a second. I believe the officers educated you on the requirements. Oh, that's rich. Under the bylaw, which legally applies to your business. No, it doesn't. It's his property, and that does not apply to that man at all. Okay? Because the minute that we would bring this into a common law court in front of a jury of our peers, what do you think the people are going to say? See, this is how they've been getting away with all of this. Like I said, they're only using this escape route through the rules of civil procedure, and then they can point to the municipal acts and all these other things to ring fence you and screw you over once you get into that court. But when you stand outside of that and you move your claim against these people, and now this is what our entire country and world needs to do, is to force all these service corporations to produce these documents upon which they rely to administrate property without right, or claim that I or any other man or woman is their property, or they've got that obligation, right? So it says, I've copied it for your reference, including all relevant amendments. You will note the bylaw also has information related to enforcement of the bylaw and powers of bylaw officers. The issue noted about officers' conduct, this is really classic, will be investigated as a private personnel matter, and no further information will be provided publicly. See what these repugnant people do? Right? They think they got this little piss-ass piece of power where they're sitting in their office there in their little throne, and they can pump out this crap that they're not bound to bring anything to the public if they're doing any wrongdoing internally. Think again, because that's where all of this is going. All of you are going to be brought into court, and when I'm done with the City of Burlington, they're going to be lucky if there's a chair left in that building, okay? The majority of these people that are there, that from the planning department, from the councils, and multiple other departments, never mind their legal department, they're in a lot of trouble when you see the evidence that I'm going to bring forward here over the last 10 years, okay? If you think Michael Case is something, wait till you see this. It says, I trust the answers and questions regarding why the officers are allowed to be on your property and satisfies your request. He didn't request anything, okay? He made a claim and he required. Words are important. That officer conduct be investigated, okay? Sincerely, Carrie Derivin, manager of bylaw. Well, that's nice, Carrie. And so what happened when that went down, what we ultimately did is we went back, and then here's our, well, let me just move it up here for a second. I'll give you the, okay, that's that one. Just bear with me for a second, people. Everything's all good here. Okay. So what happened was, is we've just seen there, and again, those garbage PDFs that they all sent, unless your name's on it and what signature that accompanies it, none of that. Remember, I teach everyone, nothing. No words on a piece of paper can control a man or woman, okay? Unless you've consented, which Tim hasn't, okay? So we're going to draw back onto this now, because what we have here is we have the third, as you'll see here, the October 23rd. Sorry, that's the first one. That's the second notice of liability that went out to her. As we said, we did it 3 times. So after this one, on the 28th, that's when this lovely communication came from this Carrie woman. So here's our response. October the 30th, trespass, again, Marion Mead. This is the third communication is to a woman who acts as mayor for Service Corporation Burlington. I received a communication from a woman, Carrie Derivin, on Wednesday, October the 28th at 9:53 a.m. Is Carrie the mayor of this service corporation called Burlington I wrote to, or is Mary Ann? See, we wrote to Mary Ann, not one of her flunkies that works underneath her. We wrote to Mary Ann. She has a required responsibility and duty to respond back to the people, especially when a business owner, a man, is contacting them saying that agents and officers came onto his property and made an elderly woman cry, right? And we're making all these orders and assumptions, right? Acting like they had jurisdiction to be doing what they're doing. I wrote directly to Mary Ann to address this trespass, not under people under your control, ignorant of law. Legal does not apply to we the people. Fact. Again, this letter went back to Mary Ann, and Carrie's been copied on it. You don't write back to this woman, Carrie. She's a nothing burger, okay? She's just a little ignorant twit that works for the Service Corporation Burlington. Yeah, you can tell I have a lot of love for these people over there when you see everything that I've got on them. Oh boy, it's worse. It's almost as bad as the bar. Anyways, it says, legal does not apply to we the people. Fact. The law of this land is common law, not common legal. Mary Ann is required to produce contract with I and the Service Corporation to administrate property. I don't have contract showing my name or what signature people under Mary Ann control for jurisdiction. Okay, it's very important. See how simple it is? I don't have contract showing my name or wet signature people under Marianne control for jurisdiction. The word jurisdiction means control. See how simple you're able to say that to people. That's why the words, you start to pay attention to the words that are always used. It's the same thing, but you always look to keep it short. And you'll notice for the most part, I keep everything to one sentence, so it's very pointed. All right? The same applies to another corrupt service corporation called Ontario. We're hitting her right between the eyes with everything, so everybody knows we the people are done with you, who also must produce contract. All right. The city of Burlington is this because she was referring to the Municipal Act. Okay, just so you understand that, or the whatever it is, the government of Ontario, the service corporation, one of their acts or statutes she was referring to. That's why I also incorporate within their reply. I also hit them what they're trying to reference as their right to do everything. Remember, people who are acting in a service corporation capacity for any corporation, they've got what? Duties and obligations. They don't have rights. Okay, those bylaw officers, they have no rights. All right, they only have rights if they're a man or woman walking into Tim's store. All right, and that is all very simply and powerfully proved once you bring these parasites into court. So it says, I don't have contracts showing my name or what signature people under Marianne control for jurisdiction. Same applies to another corrupt service corporation called Ontario, who also must produce contract. The city of Burlington is a service corporation, no different than McDonald's, Tim Hortons, Home Depot, etc. And unless Marianne produces the contract with my wet signature relied to trespass as claimed, then Carey Communication multiple internal PDF policy is pure garbage based on ignorance. And that's putting it to them nicely. Tim liked that line as well, just for the record, so you all know. Let's be perfectly clear. Not Marianne, nor any man or woman at this service corporation or any makes laws or binds we the people to such nonsense as presented by Carey, who believes people are property. Carey wrote, and that's why I put it in red, the issue noted about officer conduct will be investigated as a private personnel matter and no further information will be provided publicly. Not issues, trespass. And this is on public record and being shown to this country of this repugnant mentality Marianne condones from her agents. Okay? When she fluffed this back off to her agents to address, it shows you her ignorance. She knows nothing about law. Okay? She's a puppet for Doug Ford and this system that she's worked her way up through from first being she used to write for the Toronto Sun, and then she being a counselor. She got elected as a counselor, and then for a few years after counselor, then she moved up to acting as mayor. And at every way along her tradition, I actually sat in Marianne Mead's house with her before she became a counselor. And I was showing her, well, it's part of the corruption that I've got surrounding the city of Burlington and the past 3 people that were acting as mayors and all of their council members and multiple departments. Like I said, I'm going to rope this corruption out like nobody's business before. And what I do here in Burlington is going to be alike to everybody else and every other municipality. But we can't do that until we get past these rules of civil procedure. That's how simple this is, people. Okay? So as I said there, this issue noted about officers' conduct will be investigated as a private personnel matter and no further information will be provided publicly. Okay? That is very ignorant and arrogant that she would actually write that. That's them snuffing it back in your face like we really don't care. You think we'll take care of this and it's none of your business what we think or believe. And you know nothing's going to happen with that man internally and it should be done publicly. Why? Because he came out into the public. He did that in a public store, okay? In a public location, right? They're disgusting, every last one of them. Nor was any contract produced in Carey Communication, just PDFs that do not apply to I or the people. Again, so this is when we go back in and then you just copy again from the first communications. We hit her again with the 3 communications here. There's the notices there. The notices change liability. I, Tim, blah, blah, give notice. There it is all right there again. It's all nice and simple, okay? So that is how we ultimately take care of all of this and take this out. This is something that... it's very important that you understand the process and why we're doing these things in real time for you, that you can understand it. And Tim is a great man. He's going to follow this through right to the letter to the end. So if you're keeping track here, we've written 3 letters. We've got a garbage letter back response from them. So we'll see if they respond to this 3rd letter now, okay? Because they're still on notice. They have not produced the contract. They have not produced the evidence upon which they rely to be doing and carrying out these orders against this man on his property in his private store, okay, with people out in the public. So we'll bring you a wrap up again on that on Tuesday next week, because I imagine there's going to be some more stuff that hits the fan as we move forward this week. This week coming up is a huge week. This is a huge week for all of us, from Google to what's going on at my end to multiple cases now being shown in the light. This is when the rubber hits the road, and this is when we need everybody. Okay, we're going to really need everybody very soon here to start really putting the boots to these people through email communications and phone calls moving forward. So the next thing that we're going to drop into here, for people that haven't seen, is this Bill 218. Okay? And what's been going on over the last... oh, sorry, it's the wrong one here. There, it's already up there. Okay. Again, I've got multiple screens that I'm looking at here, so I have to do these as I'm doing it at time. 369 Media. This is about, for those of you who don't know, there's this bill, okay, 218, that's come out here. Okay. Now, first we want to go back and we want to address the first part of this, okay, about 369s. Okay. These are the wonderful people that came out and they brought these notices for everybody. All right. These are the people that's behind it: Carrie Ford and another woman called Nicole Connor. I first want to say to all of them, God bless you for everything that you're doing. You're doing enormous work here and bringing the people together in this country, bringing the truth forward. However, I've written to them this week and they responded back to me. They're not quite sure why I want to speak to them. This is why I want to speak to you, Carrie and Nicole. Okay? It's because what you are doing, God bless you, you're also communicating false information to people. You're quoting things like the Charter of Rights. You're quoting things as anything to do with this government, these service corporations, that you're quoting acts or statutes have any jurisdiction over we the people. This is why you all have to learn what the difference between lawful and legal means. So what you're doing is you're only giving life to their theater, which they're creating out here. And this bill that's out there, this Ontario Bill 218, what they've done is they've gone and written letters now. This is what they're getting everyone to do through this notice situation that we're doing at the front part here. Pardon me. The home of it. This is what we showed everyone last week. Who's 3 Media, 369 Media. As you go through this, you see these are all the various bills and that, the mission statements, the acts, a call to act. These are the people that put together the wonderful notices. Okay, these are the notices that were created and written for every provincial government to be given from the people within their territories, respectively. So there's one for Ontario, one for British Columbia, etc., right across this country. They were wonderful, wonderful notices, as I touched on the last show. The problem was, again, is that what they're doing is they're using, as part of their argument, as we're going to see here, in their argument, for example, this is what they're putting to Doug Downey. Attorney General Doug Downey has announced Bill 218 in Ontario, which provides C-19 liability protection to businesses, workers, and organizations who follow the unconstitutional public health mandates and bylaws. Okay, so first and foremost, let's look at what they're doing here. This is all great that they're writing to them, right? However, what this liability is talking about is that Doug Ford and them, this is all part of their way to absolve, you ready for this? Any man or woman that works for these service corporations, governments, from any wrongdoing. They're not going to be allowed to be held accountable in a court of law. See, in the legal world, this is what they're doing. How convenient. They bring out the C-19, all based on a lie. They destroy all the businesses. They terrorize all the people around the world. And now in Canada, they got the kahunas to come forth and actually bring forward this BS. Are you seeing what's going on here? That now they're going to bring something forward and pass a bill that absolves them all from everything that they've been doing. See, this is why we must get into that public courthouse. We must move the rules of civil procedure out of the way, because the second that we do, this man, Doug Downey, who, again, I put on the record, is part of the theft of the Maneri family's farm, terrorizing them, and he's an attorney general, acting as attorney general. So when you understand what he's been doing for a very long time now, these people, like I say, the attorney generals right across this land, they need to be locked up for 25 years each, and that's where this is going. Okay, and I will make that claim in the court when people understand the enormous wrong and harm that they've done. Okay? Anyways, I don't want to get into it. There's so much I could talk to you about with the wrong and harm that they've done. I'm going to actually do a special show in the near future as well on various casework that I'm going to be able to show you what they've done to people that have done nothing wrong, and they've destroyed them, taken their homes, locked them up in jails for years, all because of this ignorance that exists in our world, that the people don't know that these people that are supposed to be, part of this service corporation protecting the property of man, they've been doing the exact opposite of. So it goes on here. We drafted this email and are choosing to share it with you, to the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, the Governor General, Chief Medical Officer, Health and Communications, Director of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. We are not lawyers. That's right, you're not lawyers. You're a man or woman. But we are deeply concerned about this harm this bill perpetrates, and are actively choosing to voice our dissent. We encourage you to research our statement, and if you agree and feel strongly, we invite you to use it as a template for your own email. So God bless them and what they're doing here. They're bringing this attention. They want people to mail these people en masse, but the mailing that should be going to them now on top of this, or it should be a very simple mailing, which I'm going to reach out to Nicole and Carrie to do, and I hope all of you do as well, is they need to launch a massive campaign now right here in Canada on what? The rules of civil procedure. See how beautiful this is now? Carrie and Nicole, they can take the Sukleski court. They can now bring this to national attention. They can bring simply the rules of civil procedure are at the forefront of this court case. And that's what the entire world, that's what the entire country needs to be firing all these notices to MPs, MPPs, mayors, all right, the attorney generals, to let them know that the gig is up. The legal society is finished in this country. We, the people, are done with your corruption. You're going to open up those public courthouses because we're bringing it all out now into the open, right? I stand behind everything that's been put pen to paper, right? And it's there now out in the open. And God bless you, Nicole and Sherry. I hope, or Carrie, for the love of God, you've got to bring your next communication out as surrounding the rules of civil procedure, draw attention to the Sukleski case, and then watch the rubber really hit the road. We need to do this now because they've attacked Michael's case. They're looking to throw it out. So we've got a little over a week and a bit now to bring this to the forefront to our entire country. And I believe we can get that done. Okay? So you can go back and you can read these things. They're talking about, immunity and from liability so long as honest effort is made to carry out public health guidelines, deems Bill 218 a quid pro quo, implicating business owners and unconstitutional. Remember, the Constitution doesn't apply to you, a man or woman. You need to understand these people that are going out that are speaking about the constitutions, okay, or speaking about acts, codes, or statutes, ignore it. Ignore it all, okay? This is where the rubber hits the road. You're not going to stand in a public courthouse and where you've had a trespass, for example, from this woman marrying me or these bylaw officers at Tim, and you're going to come forward and bring some crap like a constitutional forward that you didn't write? Do you understand the insanity of that? Pointing to a constitution, another piece of paper as if that gave you your rights. You see, what's happening here with this awakening of the consciousness of my fellow man in this world, what you're learning is the power that you have as a man or woman. We came into this world with no paper attached to us, and yet, at every single stage, when people are writing communications to people, they're trying to use paperwork to make their point. Paperwork that doesn't apply to you. As these incredible women are doing here, this needs to be an educational lesson for them, that what they're doing is they're giving life to something that has no jurisdiction over we the people. So I will leave that for you. You guys can read through this. Again, this is at home of 369 Media. You can look them up online there. There it is right there, 369media.com. Incredible site. Go there, and hopefully in the very near future, you're going to see this next stage, what we've talked about here with everyone. I wanted to show you, this is the man himself. This is this man, Doug Downey, okay? I despise this man. And when I get him into court, he's finished in 3 questions. Okay, he's done, along with every other attorney general across this country. And I'm going to hit him right between the eyes with the Maneri case. Okay, I'm going to hit him right between the eyes with what's going on with the Sukleski court as well. Okay, it's over. The gig is up for these people. And that's why the country and the world right now needs to rally around that one fact. The rules of civil procedure don't apply to we the people. Toronto, a new bill in Ontario could make it harder for consumers to sue. Well, we're not consumers. We are a man or woman. To sue a business that was involved in the transmission of COVID-19, lawyers say. Is the Ontario government, is that a business? Oh, you betcha it's a business. See what they're doing? Now they're trying to absolve themselves. After they burnt everything down to the ground, they're being caught with their pants down, that all of this has been based on a colossal lie and engineered by the central bankers. They're looking to put something into place down to the courts. In addition to the rules of civil procedure, they're going to put this backstop that nobody even in the legal world can try and go after them because they've now got some sort of exemption because they were doing the best they could under these incredible and historic times when all this C-19 was going on, this pandemic, which we know now is all fraud. Okay, while introducing the bill, Downey highlighted potential protection for hardworking men and women who make essential contributions to our communities, from frontline healthcare workers to people coaching minor sports teams. Protection for hardline front-working, they're not the people that caused all this. See, they're pitting us man against man and woman against man and woman here. These people that provide these good services for us, that are doing the best that they can, that are under these people's control, they are putting them against us to saying, well, you can't sue them in the doctor's hospital when they're absolving themselves all at the top that created all of this. The biggest impact will soon come to the long-term care industry, notes Molson Setti, a lawyer at Sodas LLP, but the bill also has the potential to wipe out claims from patrons at other businesses, he said. The new law comes amid concerns of the ability of businesses to keep people safe. No one's at risk. We're only at risk because of the governments in this world, okay? They are the criminals at the very top that are orchestrating this with the central bankers. You got to get it, people. An Ipsos poll released on Wednesday suggests that only 35% of respondents, start paying attention, they never use the word man or woman, agreed that businesses are making an effort to ensure health and safe guidelines are followed. when none of them need to be even in place to begin with. Again, to anyone listening out there in business, it's about time you stand up on your legs and get off your rear end and rip down all of these social distancing signs, rip down all these masks entering your store. People can enter them as they do at Tim's store, however they wish, okay? As long as you're causing no wrong and harm in that store or that restaurant, have a seat, enjoy our wonderful meal that we're going to create for you, because there is no virus going around that's killing people. There is no pandemic, and that's the truth. Chris Bryan, the president of the Elect Ontario Trial Lawyers Association, said he understands the government faces a difficult task to help businesses, they've never helped us a day in our life, that have lost money during the COVID-19 pandemic while balancing the rights of ill people and grieving families. While Downey said the bill would still allow people to take legal action, well, we're not going to be taking legal action, Dougie boy. I'm going to be the first guy that you're going to see and the last guy, because you're going to get locked up most likely for the rest of your life, and rightfully so. Taking legal against bad actors. Oh, is that what they're calling everybody that's done this, right? Not you, Doug. No, not Doug Ford, not Doug Downey, not Justin Trudeau, not these other attorney generals right across this land and all your agents and officers underneath you. No, no, no. It's just a few people a few bad actors that are doing this. Anyways, you can read this article. This is in the Toronto Star, I believe. The Star, there it is there. It came out on October the 22nd. Give it a look, and hopefully it doesn't make your stomach too sick to what is actually going on here. So moving forward here, the next thing that I want to drill down on here, we've talked about Bill 218, and it's your importance to get involved with that. That's the thing I want to talk about as well. Is I got a communication on Friday last week at 1 or 2 o'clock, and the cutoff to speak at this, they're actually having hearings in Toronto, I believe, starting in a week or so, to address this, where the public's all supposed to come out and speak. Those that have signed up are allowed to speak on the mic to this panel about this bill that has initially been passed through this process running the Service Corporation. Let me put it in the simplest terms for you. If McDonald's, okay, or say I won't use McDonald's, I'm always picking on them. I don't want to do that because as far as I'm concerned, well, that's another story. But let's just say your lawn service company, okay? Your lawn service company goes and puts together a bill, and they call it Bill Green 218. And the bill for their service corporation that has tentacles right across this country, practically every man and woman is using their service corporation, just like the government of Ontario or the government of wherever province you live in. Okay, you have to get it in that frame of mind. You've got a service corporation there, but let's take them out of the way and put the lawn care company. Imagine if they created a bill that said that you could never sue any of their officers if they came onto your property and they terrorized you, they damaged your property, they destroyed your business, right? They ordered you around. Think of all the things that have been happening to you for the last 9 months that have been going on. It's all based on fraud. People are seeing this now. If your lawn care service company or corporation, okay, came to you and gave you that bill, 218, that they've just passed internally, does that apply to you, we the people? And the answer is no, it does not. Okay? It's that simple because you didn't write it. Now you have to understand exactly what's going on with Doug Ford and this parasite, Doug Downey, who's created all this documentation. They've been putting this in the works for a while because they know they've got to keep kicking this can down the road while they're covering their backsides. And that's why the rules of civil procedure, once they're pulled out, it's game over for these people. So what happened was, like I said, it's been the last week or whatever, timing is very paramount as I'm moving forward here, and it's very calculated in the actions that I'm doing. And this is when it's going to really pick up speed, because our communications now are going to flow fast and furious between these people that are trying to block the courthouse. Okay, you're going to see the communications. I don't bother writing to Doug Downey because Doug Downey is corrupt. Okay, as I've laid out from the Maneri case, also what his agents and officers are doing and attempting to do again now with Michael and his estate case. All right, and again, I say that on the record because my claim is backed up with the evidence that I have just alone on the Maneri case. But when you start dragging in and understanding that this man and several people before him that have been acting as attorney generals, they've all been given this information on the trespass that occurs when we're born. They've all been given the information of the unlawful conversion that occurs. And they don't care because their society's got a rap on everything with our public courthouses. And that's why this fight that's before us now is so huge. Why? Well, let me tell you. It's because this second part, and I'm going to wrap this up here, that we're going to end this on. This is a video that I'm going to play that leads it out. A man by the name of Bill Matcher, as he's referred to, as a retired RCMP officer. I came across this video a couple of years ago. This video is actually taken from Doug Hagman, report on YouTube. Doug, thank you very much for all the work that you do. Again, I thank you for this interview. I cut out the first hour of it with commercials and everything that actually Bill was not on, but I brought in the second part. And this interview that you're all about to watch, take a break, put this on pause, go make a tea and or a beer or whatever, sit down and come back and watch this. This is coming out. I'm bringing this out at this time as a calculated move. You're going to hear exactly from one of the top people of the RCMP of the corruption of the bar, horrific corruption. And he's also going to tell you what I told everybody 5 years ago on that channel, who the enemy is. It's this society, this bar that we don't belong to. These are the enemies that are right in front of us right now. Once we get them out of the way at our public courthouses, through the rules of civil procedure, see how it comes back to that? That is when we are able, from that public courthouse, to be a light and to start taking down all this other corruption that's outside of our courthouses. That's what a public courthouse is for. But Bill, you're going to watch an incredible video here. I've talked now for, what's it been? 1 hour and 11 minutes. So this is going to take us to almost 2 hours, or a little bit past 2 hours when it's done. I hope you've enjoyed this communication that we've done here this evening. I'm not going to end this with the normal outro with our good friend Sly and the Family Stone, but I would like to always thank you for letting me be myself again here. The communications right now are going to come fast and furious with me. We've got our productions that are also finishing up in the back end. I'm telling this now before I run this clip because I'm not going to come back after this video plays. But Jesse Casanova's been doing incredible work. All our ducks are lining up now, and we've got some massive productions that are coming out this month. Okay, it's coming, people. First, you're going to get hit with our red pill that Jesse's put together, which is phenomenal. Then you're going to get hit with a short trilogy broadcast that we've pulled together to really wake this world, and hopefully these are going to go viral, these videos. And then you're going to hear from Judy Mikovits. You're going to hear from incredible people that I've interviewed. And it's in that moment that things are really going to hit the ground here. So everything is coming to a head here. Hopefully, everyone say a prayer again for Sean before I leave, and SGTV and the other 14 or 15 YouTube subscribers and all of us in this world, that tomorrow morning in that California court, that Google has the boots put to them. Okay, that they are basically put in their place and that they are never going to do this again to people. Not only from their terms of services agreement, but they're going to stop all of this horrific blocking, okay, and strikes that they're giving people, all based on far beyond what their terms of service agreements actually allow. So again, this is Bill Major. This is one of the best communications you're ever going to hear from a past officer. I want everyone also to know from a disclaimer that there is a little bit of a background history on Bill that's appears to be some nefarious stuff that he was involved in or still involved in. I haven't been able to confirm any of that, but what he's speaking to here about the bar and what you're going to hear about is truth. Okay? And what he's telling you about as well that I learned about is that there are many good people with the RCMP that move their courses or their cases up through the ranks right to the head people when they're as big as what you're about to hear what Bill's been doing on an international level. And when they got moved to the highest levels of the RCMP, they block it. Okay? This is why you need to understand. Okay? All of these people that are supposed to be providing good faith services, that are supposed to have this incredible honor and care for their fellow man at the very highest levels, from the RCMP to the OPP to your municipal police, and don't get me started on the Ontario governments, provincial governments, and the federal level. All of these people at the top are corrupt, or their consciousness has been corrupted. And that's what's being brought out into the light now. That's why the video that we put up that you see going on in Australia, going on in the UK, where people are going into the police stations and they're filing with them notices of liability. God bless them. They're putting all those people on notice that, hey, Joe, Bob, and Susie, you work for a service corporation here. You're stepping way over your bounds. None of the crap that you're coming out into the public and applying to us applies to us. Okay? And all of you understand this now simply. You don't have to get caught up in the acts, codes, and statutes because you realize it's being written from a service corporation that is there to serve you. Okay? Never forget that. So in closing, please contact Randy Hillier. If you've done it once, do it again. We need thousands of people to contact Randy Hillier and Julian. Okay, the emails are in the last communication, the broadcast that I did, so that everybody can start to put the pressure on these people. And as we get to my broadcast next Thursday, we're going to be putting pressure on some more people that are even higher up. And that's how we drag this out into the light. And hopefully, Carrie and Nicole, they're going to step up, and we're going to bring the rules of civil procedure out on a massive campaign as well in the next week. And then the fun's going to really start, people. So, God bless you. Love you with all my heart. Keep up the fight. because I'm here to fight this now, boys and girls. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. This is all coming to a head before the end of this month now. But we got our fight on right now with the Milton Courthouse, and I need all of you on deck to ensure that it stays in that courthouse and that the world knows exactly why it's there and the power of it being there today. I'll leave you with Bill Matcher. Enjoy this incredible interview with him, and I'll be back hopefully this Thursday, November the 5th, for a live stream around, I think about 8 o'clock. Don't worry, those of you that are subscribed, and while you subscribe, you will all get the email for the link to this new setup that we're putting in place right now. Again, I love you, Godspeed, and enjoy.
For the sake of your audience, give a little bit of background on myself and bring it forward to why I have some of the views and opinions that I have. I've been very blessed that I've had a very wonderful career. I'm actually retired from the RCMP, or Mounties as it's known. But, for the better part of everything we talk about here, it is all shaped by my own personal experiences. It's very direct. I'm not relying on the work of others to have my opinions. Of course, I listen to other people's experiences and help define it. But by and large, when it comes to financial crime, government corruption, terrorism, it's based 100%, my opinions at least, on my own personal direct experiences.
Understood.
So as a form of background, I grew up in a very typical middle-class Canadian family. My father was a military naval officer. After university, I got a job as a Eurobond trader in London, England, back in late 1984, going into 85. At 21 years of age, I was making more money than my father after 38 years as a commander in the Navy. But I wasn't motivated by money. I was okay as a bond trader. Can't say I was a rock star, but I came back to Canada and joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. As a young lad, the Mounties are an iconic symbol of Canada. I was bought into the mystique of the organization. But I have to say, in fairness, it was by and large a very good organization to work with and for. So I have no complaints in that regard. But once I got into the Mounties, we all do our training in Regina, which is where our training academy is. It's a paramilitary type organization, very much on the old British military model, where we're getting our hair cut every 8 days. The first 2 months on base, you're not allowed to walk. You have to run everywhere till you get your marching orders. So quite unique for a police force to have that type of military environment where we're living in barracks, 32-man dorms. That's what we call a troop. And from there, you learn about esprit de corps, learn about, are you going to rely on the people beside you in the field, especially if they're maybe a bit incompetent in training. So there's lots of social engineering that starts to take place early. But I went on to, when I got out, I went and did uniform patrol, which is what all Mounties start out as. And then I gravitated towards our undercover program. And as I went into the undercover program, it was unique from a couple perspectives. Typically somebody, or the perception at least, somebody with my background in capital markets at that level I was at, joining the police force is unusual enough. Getting involved in the undercover program itself was rather unique, because the perception is that you're a pencil pusher type individual. And fortunately, I gravitated towards undercover work and was quite adept at it. And my first operation was buying heroin and cocaine in the downtown east side of Vancouver, which in fairness was like shooting, fish in a barrel, but made a very large number of heroin and cocaine and other drugs purchases. And then from that, I was asked, what did I know about futures and options? I said, I don't know anything about futures and options. Okay, how would you like to go work with the FBI in Chicago, down at the Chicago Board of Trade? And so I had to then take my futures and options courses through the CFTC because I'm dealing in public markets and because of third-party liability. So that began my background into the financial markets. And more importantly, it started developing my undercover persona, which was Bill McDonald. And that's important because this was the day and the era, going back over 25 years ago, before the advent of the internet, where your cover story, your backstopping was so important. And so I was able to have my high school records changed, university records changed. I had federally incorporated companies. I was paying taxes in my covert name. I was traveling on my covert name. I was doing everything. So when the time came for bad guys to check me out, I had everything in place, which was rather unique at the time. And so as a result of that, I gravitated towards a lot of money laundering, financial undercover. Probably half of my covert career I spent working for U.S. agencies. So under the Canada-U.S. Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, if there is an individual who has a specific skill set and can provide assistance to either agencies on either side of the border, you were allowed to go work there. So I spent many years working for the American agencies, mostly into Colombian cartels, into organized financial crime. It was a wide variety of things, from drugs to markets related to even to a point of counter-espionage. And again, it runs a very vast circle, because one of the things that start happening as you get higher into the food chain and dealing with particularly offshore professional groups, bankers, lawyers, accountants, you start seeing something that to us was a revelation, at least in 10, 12 years ago, and that was the interplay between various organized crime groups that at an operational level were unrelated, but at a financial level all had the same facilitators. We're using the same professional bodies. So I started being introduced to other criminal organizations and groups by the professional class, particularly the offshore professional class. And so in the midst of having, and we can get into all those details, no problem, but again, in the backdrop of all of that, I had the operational experience as the undercover. And then 9/11 happened. And after 9/11 happened, there was a need to ramp up, certainly in Canada, how we approached the penetration and recruitment at a global level, certainly at a national level, but also to operate internationally in terms of getting inside terrorist groups, penetrating organized crime, that's transglobal, etc. And so I came back, and then I went from being the front-end operator for a period of time where I audited Canada's global infrastructure for covert ops. And then I used the skills I had learned in the field and things that I saw that didn't work as well. And together with a brilliant colleague named Brad Damaris, we developed Canada's global infrastructure post 9/11. And we based it on a very fundamental principle. We observed what best of breed criminals were doing in terms of how they were covering their tracks, how they were layering. Mostly we used a lot of money laundering knowledge. And so we started creating layers upon layers of identity protection for our operators as we started, building up their legends, their history. And in that process, we also had to set up the infrastructure, the banking, the financial infrastructure that went along with that. And so, that requires us, overseas, you have to pay to relocate your informants, people that are assisting you in hostile environments. You need to protect them. You need to look after them. So you can't exactly send a check with the government of Canada stamp on it. So we had to come up with methods and means to provide a layer of protection to these people. And in so doing, we also had to then go out into the larger banking community. And we, of course, couldn't tell them who we were or what we were doing for operational security. And so part of my role was, how do we defeat the bank's AML, KYC, anti-money laundering, know your client type issues. And it was remarkably easy. And so, again, I used what I learned in the field. I learned what we used from debriefing criminals that were in custody, at learning what worked, what didn't work, where the tripwires were. And so we created that infrastructure. So it gave me the ability to be on both sides of the table, both as the undercover operator and then the fellow who had to make sure that our people and the people who work with us are protected when they're out in the field. So creating that infrastructure. But it all came from the same sort of experience.
Interesting. Now, from your experience, In fact, Canadian Business Online had done an article back in 2007. It was 10 years ago now, almost. Uh, the tagline is well, it says, country or a good country for crooks with respect to Canada. If you suspect Canada is soft on white collar crime, these ex-Mounties have news for you. It's worse than you think. You kind of brought us to this point in this introduction. Your assessment on then and now, your assessment on the status of white collar crime that you've seen, and our collective response to it, whether it's Canada or the United States, is it still worse than we think, or is it improved?
Well, from the Canadian perspective, I think Canadian, when I see how little we have done, I have seen how we have allowed our country to be used as a global laundromat. It is a safe haven for almost the entire cadre of global organized crime and terrorist groups and terrorist financing. And many of the issues were identified for the last 10, 15 years. In fact, some of the cases I was involved in was very specific that was used by those trying to affect legislation in Canada to address these deficiencies, and the government has refused. And again, I'll get into why I believe that's the case and what's been the effect of that. And from the American perspective, I think that the American system has been far more effective in protecting its citizens, certainly than the Canadians. And again, I have a line when I sometimes talk to audiences. I said, listen, if you're going to be a criminal, not that I'm advocating it by any stretch, but I only have two pieces of advice for you. One is don't do it with anybody else. Once two people know about it, the other one's going to get compromised at some point. And the second rule is don't defraud an American. Don't make an American a victim. Because from my experience, the only country in the world that will aggressively go after those who victimize Americans is America. Canada simply won't do that. And it doesn't even protect its own people in the country. Now, to take it back, why I say that. Canada, for a number of reasons, and it should be reasons of great concern for American government and law enforcement people, is that Canada is a safe country, no question. But Canada has 35 million people. It's the largest undefended border in the world with the United States. The United States represents the world's richest population base. We all speak the same language, which is English. The majority of the Canadian population lives within 200 miles of the US border. If I want to attack the United States, whether it be economically or in other forms, or I want to victimize the United States and its citizens, what is one of the easiest ways to do it? Let's get in a country that has the same language, has basically shared common values, that is in the same time zones, and has a number of features that make it much more desirable to defraud Americans being across the border. One, in Canada, we have very, very strong privacy laws, very strong Privacy Act. We have a very stable banking system. As we saw through the global financial crisis, Canadian banks came out at the top of the heap in terms of their resilience. So a very strong, stable banking system. Canada also is a world leader in communications and telecommunications. So if I'm a crook, I need to know that if I'm blasting out emails or I need to communicate with my bankers or my associates in real time, I need reliability of communications. Canada has that. Canada has very, very strong trust laws. And as we see, both in terms of trust and also charities, it is impossible to get in behind some of the secrecy or privacy as to who is putting money into charities, and the position of trust in Canadian law. It doesn't almost matter who's behind it. You're not going to penetrate it. And then last but not least, and this is really what sets Canada apart for most of the G20 countries. Canada, the lawyers in Canada are, in my mind, the Canadian Bar Association is probably the most powerful criminal organization in Canada. You know, they are statutorily exempt from cash transaction reporting and you know, filing STRs. You know, they take their direction from the Law Society. But I've yet to see where there is a more than a 1% voluntary disclosure from lawyers in any transaction into the Financial Intelligence Unit in Canada. So also lawyers in Canada have solicitor-client privilege, which is probably stronger in Canada than any other country. Case in point, when I was working undercover, I had dealt with a number of lawyers, and in one lawyer's case, a Canadian lawyer, I met him in Miami, and I gave him a $1 bill. I said, do we now have solicitor-client privilege? Yes, we do. I said, okay, everything I'm talking about is cocaine money. All my money comes from cocaine. My organization's generating $3 million a day in cocaine sales. I need to clean it. Not a problem. And so we began talking about it. And he did a couple things for me. Bill, whenever you need to talk to your associates, you can come into my law firm, which in this case was back up in Toronto. You can use my law office because the authorities in Canada can't get wiretaps on lawyers because of the solicitor-client privilege issue. Now, they may tell you on paper, oh, that's not true, but in reality, that's absolutely true. It's so bad that when we go to do a search warrant at a lawyer's office who's part of a conspiracy, we have to notify the Law Society before we do so. They're going to appoint somebody to come with us on the search, even if it's in a, you know, it's a real, fairly major criminal conspiracy. So we're already tipping our hands to fellow lawyers. In one case that I was involved in, we actually had to make an appointment because it was a national law firm, and one of the lawyers we were investigating for part of a fraudulent transaction. We had to make an appointment with the law firm so we could execute our search warrant. I mean, it's gone past the point of ridiculousness. And so with that whole issue, lawyers in Canada, you know, they hide behind solicitor-client privilege. The one lawyer said to me, he said, Bill, why don't you move your criminal enterprise to Canada? He says it's 20 times safer than doing it in the United States. Another Canadian lawyer who actually was the lawyer who incorporated the Hells Angels in the west coast of Canada, and very prolific. It's very funny because he gave the same analogy. Bill, you should move your criminal enterprise to Canada because it's 100 times safer. One guy uses the analogy of 20 times, the other says 100 times. But what do they know that the rest of the world doesn't know? And the reality is the rest of the world does know that. So, you know, the world's first suicide bombers weren't coming out of Palestine. They were coming out of Sri Lanka with the Tamil Tigers. And so that large, very violent, bloody civil war was primarily funded from Canada. There's 250,000 Tamils living outside Toronto. It's a horrific problem, most of them involved in drug dealing. We have, you know, the Air India bombing of a 747, which was the largest single act of aviation terrorism prior to 9/11. And again, 340 people were killed when the 747 was blown out of the sky over the Irish Sea, and 270 were Canadians. And again, the ability for these terrorist groups to use Canada as their base is well documented and well known. It is not a coincidence that almost 30% of China's top 100 most wanted criminals are in Canada. They understand that the law, you know, it works on a very fundamental principle, and I think it's true in the United States as well as in Canada. Criminal law is based on one overarching principle. That is, you are innocent until proven broke. And so the legal system in Canada is not set up for justice. It's a legal system. I'm going to paraphrase what one judge had actually said about the state of criminal law in Canada. And that is and again, I'm not getting the quote quite accurately, but this will capture it. The evidence in a criminal trial is merely a sideshow. The conduct of the police is the main event. So it all becomes form over substance. The Canadian legal system is a, pardon my French, is a wet dream for those engaged in financial crime and terrorism. It doesn't almost matter what it is. And again, because the United States represents such a rich market, it just makes sense that people want to be close to it. The other feature about Canada that is abused is the ability, and again, it's not unique to Canada. This is, again, I call it the professional kleptocracy, which is the lawyers and the accountants who are really driving and are behind and facilitating almost 95% of high-end financial crime. And the beauty, the get out of jail free card that lawyers employ, and thus the use of offshore vehicles so much, is I am a client, I'm a bad guy. I go to my lawyer, securities lawyer, corporate lawyer. Hey, I want to set this deal up. I want to do it this way. The lawyer knows he's going onto thin ice by what his client's going to do. He needs to get his get out of jail free card. So what does he do? He goes out and he shops for a third party legal opinion from another law firm or another lawyer. And so he buys the best legal opinion money can buy. And then if in the event that his client gets caught up by the police or others in the financial in their financial crime investigation, the lawyer at least covers his butt by pulling out, well, I went out and got a third-party legal opinion. This is a racket, and it's been going on for years and decades. And that is why I say, in my mind, the greatest threat to Canadians and Americans is not the Italian mafia. It's not the cartels. It's probably not even terrorism. It comes down, you look at most of your lobbyists in the United States, most of your lobbyists that affect change, how many of them are dentists? The vast majority are lawyers. And so you have this great legal kleptocracy.
From what your description is, many cases involving themselves in criminal activity, involving their law practices and law firms as safe havens for the criminals to conduct business. And it seems like a very extensive problem.
Well, it's an extensive problem, but it's unfortunately not isolated to Canada. It's a global problem. And you know, you just have to look the recent Russian global laundromat investigation that exploded last year with you know, allegedly 20 to 80 billion US dollars equivalent of dirty Russian money entering the global financial system via Latvia and Moldova. But that was all facilitated primarily by the professional class out of London. Set up the companies. What they did is they contrived to set up fictitious loans that were designed to go into default, and as they went into default, the guarantor of the loan of these loans were Russian front companies, and so it went through the courts in Moldova, and you have right now I think 12 or 13 judges under criminal investigation and facing prosecution for facilitating money laundering. I mean, it brings judicial money laundering to a whole new realm. But you know, again, this was all facilitated and then brought into the global banking system, 20 to 80 billion dollars. And again, it couldn't have been done. Bankers alone, I surmise that, you know, bankers get a bad rap. A lot of them deserve it. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them deserve it. But even when you look at things like Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, if I'm working for a large engineering firm and I can get a contract because I'm paying a $20 million bribe or a secret commission to the other side, do you think I, as the salesman or the business development guy for that region, has the ability to take $20 million of the company's money from its treasury and structure it in a way that nobody knows what it's used for? Of course not. You have typically it's lawyers and accountants who are putting this together, just like with the Russian laundromat. A layman is not putting together the financial documents and the like that create these opportunities. So this is by no means unique to Canada, the extent of this problem. And again, one of the things you stop when you realize how much the offshore marketplace and offshore financial centers, they are there and they do legitimate services and businesses, no question about that. But they are also the absolute perfect fertile ground for the global kleptocracy to surround their clients with a structured legal envelope so they can get away with almost anything and everything. And, case in point, when I was working with the FBI out of Miami, a great investigator by the name of Ross Gaffney ran the money laundering and white collar crime for the FBI, and he also was the architect behind WICIT, which was the white collar crime investigative task force that was set up between the British government and the American government to tackle financial crime and money laundering in the Caribbean. And so I was down there for better part of 3 years. Again, my cover story is I was the front man for a Colombian cartel. And again, I ended up laundering money through a number of institutions. In fact, you'll laugh, one of the guys who was laundering money was the agent for Kenny Rogers, the singer in the Caribbean. And so they ended up laundering part of my cocaine proceeds through Kenny Rogers Roasters, the restaurant. Now, of course, nothing to do with the singer or that, but it goes to show you all the tentacles of how it works. And there was a point where I was dealing with stock promoters and bankers, and I'd already had with them over $500,000 of money being deployed, and so I said, look, I need to start moving more money. And so they said, look, we're going to bring a fellow down to see you, Bill. This guy is a fixer. And so this fellow came down. I can't give his name for the very simple reason he came in at the very end of that operation, and we didn't have time to run the money through. And the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami didn't want to do what's called a dry conspiracy, meaning go with a criminal case just based on wording. But we were in August, I believe, of 2002 is when we did all the arrests. We arrested about 60 people. We originally had 130 people to be indicted for financial fraud and money laundering. And the U.S. Attorney's Office said, look, we have to cut that back in half. It's too many people. So about a month before it ended.
Inspector, wait a second. Why? Too many people, why? I don't understand that. Because we can't handle twice that amount? I mean, please tell me we can handle that.
Well, I listen, you're you're surprised as I am. I mean, the crime's the crime, but again, there's only so much capacity, and so wow. Basically the FBI was directed to scale back on the numbers that we were going to indict. Okay. And again, it's not the fault of the FBI. It's probably a larger systemic issue.
Gotcha.
But for sure, people got away with things, and so they brought this fellow down. I met him on a covert yacht that we'd operated on, and so this guy comes in, and he is a lawyer and represented Mossack Fonseca, the law firm at the center of the Panama Papers disclosures.
Right.
So he comes in, and I said to him, listen, I've got a cash flow problem. I've got lots of cash and no flow. And then he spent the next 2 hours talking to me about how to defeat FinCEN, which is the U.S. Treasury's financial intelligence unit, mm-hmm. And regulator, not regulator, but intel unit, how to defeat Canada's financial intelligence unit. And started taking me to a lot of things I already knew, of course, from my job, but very clearly he taught me things that I didn't know about the best way to inculcate myself from civil or criminal prosecution or detection. And he went on to tell me and explain to me the benefits of using a Panamanian foundation, and he promoted foundations over the use of trusts, and of course, was emphasizing the same thing that every sophisticated bad guy on the planet knows, and that is jurisdiction equals freedom. And what that means, very simply, is you do your crime here, you put your money there, you have the ownership over the money over in a third jurisdiction and maybe even a fourth. By the time the police get through the legal paperwork to get to ground zero on following the paper trail or the money trail, it's probably 1 or 2 years later. And so this guy absolutely understands that, just like every major bad guy understands it, and why every major law firm that is in in major centers. When I talk major centers in the United States or Canada, a lot of them don't actually have representative law offices in Panama or in the Caymans or BVI. They like to rely on third-party law firms because they then aren't tasked with knowledge. I can construct and create a vehicle or a format onshore that, you know, I have a pretty good idea what you're going to do with it, but I don't really want to be tasked with knowledge. So I say, look, you should go to this BVI or this Panamanian law firm or somebody else, and whatever last piece you need to do for whatever reason you want to do it, best that you do it with them because they have the expertise. Again, part of the get out of jail free strategy. And so they compartmentalize it and they use the different jurisdictions to do it. But in the case of this this legal rep that I'd met, he, you know, when I said I have a cash flow problem, he says, listen, I have 5 different lawyers and we can begin by putting $200,000 a month through each of the cash, through each of their trust accounts. There'll be a 7% laundering fee, and then I'll aggregate it into the account in Panama that I'll set up and structure it into your foundation. So, you know, these are the pieces of how the game is played and how it works. And
Inspector, I heard what you said, and folks, I hope you wait a second. So the attorney's going to. They're VIG. The attorney's VIG is 7% for the house, right? To help you do this. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Pure money laundering.
You know, look, I understand. I get it, but to hear this, I'm stunned. And it's open. It's this is what we're going to charge you, 7%. I mean, it's that open.
Yeah, very much so. You know, the heart of the money laundering relationship comes down to only 5 questions. In my whole career, whether I had people launder money for me or whether I laundered money for others, 5 questions define the money laundering relationship. And those 5 questions are simply, how much does it cost? In this case, it was 7%. What currencies can you do it in? How much can you do at any one time? And how long does it take? And of course, the most important question is, how do you guarantee the money? And
Okay.
once you answer those questions, you're on your way.
Mm.
Now, you know, you have to remember that, you know, when I was dealing originally with the Medellin cartel, they were paying the laundering fee because I was the one representing I could launder their money. That fee was as low as 5%, but the total cost of the cartel to set up their whole money laundering operation was as high as 40%. You know, cost of doing business, and the rationale is very simple. For every for every dollar that went into the cocaine production, they were making 1,000% profit. So, you know, 40% is a cost of putting this whole thing together. It's just the cost of doing business. That's why, you know, when these large organizations lose the cocaine, they're not very happy. But when they lose the cash, they're even more unhappy because of the exponential profit curve.
Right.
When, you know, I look at the world now, I didn't look at the world this way 10, 20 years ago. I do today. The world consists of the 0.01% who are the very top of the food chain on the planet, control by far the vast majority of the wealth and influence on the planet. It is what it is, no problem. That 0.01%, though, is serviced by the 1%. The 1% is the professional class, and there's a big range in that 1%, and they tend to be the bankers, the lawyers, the professionals, people like me and you, quite frankly, who provide services. We're all trying to make our living by providing services for those who service the 0.1%. And then you're left with the other 98.9%. And those are, you know, some of your politicians calls them the deplorables, but that's the rest of humanity. And so against that backdrop, you have this professional class that all want to get their piece of the pie. Those who are 1 in a billion are lucky enough to get into the 0.1%, but the rest want to be in that 1% and they want to make the money, they want to service it. And so that's where you start getting, again, the lawyers and the accountants and bankers who play the game to service that 0.1%. Who makes the legislation? Why is it that you have, on the boards of banks, people with a lot of rollover to the political process? And same as with accounting firms. You look no further than, who are among the largest lobbyists in the United States in terms of political donations. You're going to see the American Trial Lawyers Association in that crowd. So there's really a crossover. And when I look at it very objectively. How are you giving justice when an individual in a bank, either individually or in concert with others, does such egregious behavior that every single shareholder, every person who's got a pension fund and a retirement fund that has an investment in that bank has to pay the price in terms of a massive fine, and then, of course, the increased compliance costs on the bank because of their behavior. And yet, very few people are in jail. I look at it this way. Since the global financial crisis, or even say 2 years beforehand, since about 2005 till today, over $1 trillion US dollars has gone out the window in the form of fines and disgorgements and penalties, in terms of increased compliance costs, which means every consumer sees that he's not getting, has to pay more in terms of bank fees. Every member of the American public is watching that his investment funds or retirement funds, which are managed maybe through pension plan or by himself, is not getting the dividend that he should have got from the bank because he got hit by the fine. The government's getting its pound of flesh in terms of the fines because government's broke. So let's get our money back. But you've given this increased cost base of all these compliance people who are being hired. To what purpose is really what I question. And I can guarantee you, there is as much money laundering on a percentage basis going on today as there was in 2005. So $1 trillion sucked out of the system later. What do we have to show for it? So nobody's going to convince me that the current regime of combating financial crime and money laundering is succeeding. It succeeds very well if you're part of the professional kleptocracy, but doesn't serve so well to the average citizen in the United States or Canada or elsewhere. It is a patsy game. And I look no further than all these global banks, who've been involved in everything from facilitating the payment of money flowing through, so 200 plus Marines could get murdered in Beirut, so that airliners can get blown out of the sky, so that we could have all manner of terrorism by banks who are demonstrating, if not deliberate intent, but certainly willful blindness in where the money comes from and how it gets there. And yet, again, nobody's in jail. And what's the worst that comes out of this? The U.S. Department of Justice says, we are going to give you a deferred prosecution agreement, and we're going to appoint a monitor to sit inside your bank to ensure that you're doing what you're supposed to do to live up to the terms of the deferred prosecution agreement and what we've agreed with. I don't see anybody going to jail. What I do see, though, is I see a legal shakedown. I see a legal kleptocracy at work brilliantly, because without exception, almost every major monitorship that's issued by the Department of Justice goes to a law firm or somebody associated, either law firm or accounting firm, that has direct personal relationships to those in the SEC or the DOJ who are proffering these monitorships. I spoke earlier about this global laundromat investigation, of which 20 to 80 billion US dollars between 2010 and 2014 flowed out of Russia. This is all at the time when you have Russia under the spotlight because of its military maneuvers in the Ukraine, in the Crimea, in Georgia. So there's a lot of focus in there. Not one single financial intelligence unit or one single monitor who's embedded with almost every major bank that was caught with their hands in the cookie jar on this money discovered it. So don't tell me the system is working. It's a complete farce. But again, taxpayers taking it on the chin, the average investor's taking it on the chin, and that 1% professional class is just paying off the mortgage on the second and third home. Let me take it down to basics. Like I said, many people have made wonderful careers of BS. They've been able to take something and polish it up and make it look so clever when in fact everything comes back to basics. And this is something that I like to point out to investigators and general audiences. There's nothing complicated about money laundering, and in fact it's poorly understood. Money laundering is to take it to basics. 99% of the methods that people use to launder money are perfectly legitimate legal methods. There's nothing illegal about buying a house. There's nothing illegal about buying a car. It's illegal to use your money to involved in drug trafficking. It's illegal to use your money to go and do a kidnapping. That's an illegal use of your money. But the methods used to launder money typically are very proper, legal, legitimate methods. The real question is, what is the source of that money? Is that money criminally derived? Is that money lawfully earned money, but it's being, you're hiding it for tax evasion purposes, or you want to use that lawfully earned money for a purpose that is illegal, and so you start creating movements through the money laundering process. And so money laundering, everybody focuses on AML. That's the buzzword, anti-money laundering. And again, every bank has 10,000 people now involved in AML, but none of them understand money laundering. They understand the statutes, they understand what you're supposed to do, but they don't fundamentally understand the elements of crime. And today, we have a world that's consumed by financial technology. Technology is not the element of a crime. It is simply a medium by which criminals and crime is committed. And again, as I used the analogy during the break, if I use a rock and bang you over the head, back 1,000 years ago, that's, I guess, armed robbery. If I use some high finagled piece of laser technology and shoot you and take your money, that's armed robbery with a high-tech device. But the high-tech device is irrelevant to the actual elements of the crime. And so we tend to make smoke and mirrors about how complicated this is. And in fact, it comes down to always to the basics. What are the elements of the crime? And something else I should add. I mean, it's nothing that I probably want to I don't want to discourage people, but typically when it comes to financial crime, we do not catch the smart guys. We simply don't. The few times that we do catch the smart financial criminal or money launderer is because we got lucky, we got a break, or typically it's through an informant, an angry spouse or ex-business partner, or sometimes people, become born again and they need to cleanse themselves, but that's pretty rare. So that's typically how we catch the smart guys. So most of our money laundering and financial crime knowledge and case law and through the courts is based on the dumb people we catch. And so, by the time these dumb people get through the court process, it could be 2 or 3 years later. And at that point in time, that's when many regulators say, haha, this is common typology about how people are doing financial crime or money laundering. So you, Mr. Bank Compliance Officer and people, you need to start checking for this. You need to instill in your regime the methods to catch this type of criminal activity. And again, the problem is it's based on the dumb people, and it's based on something that's probably 2 or 3 years old.
Fascinating. All right. Wow. And again, folks, this is to me, this is one of the most important topics, especially today, given all the issues with respect to money, and money is the lifeblood of, well, politics and such. Inspector Meiker, what about the UN World Bank? We hear they do contribute to terrorist financing, and there's an article that describes this. In fact, we're going to link it on our program description. But can you get into, for example, UN World Bank, terrorist financing, Gaddafi, Libya, UN donor aid money and such? Can you get into that as to the extent you can?
Sure, no, happy to do so. Like I said, money follows the path of least resistance. And as I go into this, I love the quote the English writer Francis Bacon, where he says, "If money is not thy servant, then it's thy master." And that's why so many different organizations have been corrupted, and why individuals within those organizations are susceptible to greed, power, ego, and again, money really is at the heart of so much of it. In the case of Gaddafi was toppled from power and executed in 2011. In 2014, I got contacted. I'd retired from government already, but I got contacted by a former colleague who was looking at doing an asset recovery of $240 million belonging to, or purportedly belonging to, Gaddafi that had surfaced in Abidjan in the Ivory Coast of Africa. So I was asked, would I be willing to go in to the Ivory Coast and meet with these military people who had control over this money. And so I said, okay, sure, why not? And so I went into Abidjan, literally 6 months after the Civil War ended. So lots of soldiers around and troops. And so I get in there, and the story was that this money was sitting in a bonded warehouse at the airport. It was wrapped in crates. It was in these crates, probably about 2 feet high, from about 5 feet in length, and it contained US $100 bills, all clean bills. In fact, we were able to confirm that the bills were indeed issued by the Federal Reserve. So the only problem is that those bills, they're saying it was Gaddafi's money when he was executed. People took the money out of Libya and take it to a safe place. And so now these so-called government military officials in Ivory Coast had their hands on this money, and they were looking to launder it. And they were willing to pay a 40% laundering fee to get this cash out of the Ivory Coast and into bank accounts where they could have it. So I went there. There were some middlemen in the middle, obviously, and I met with these officials, and the money indeed was in these steel crates. It was in the seal of Libya, and then the money was real. So they said, look, we have this in the bonded warehouse. We're showing the goods, these crates, as being emeralds from Mali, and to get it out of the bonded warehouse, you have to pay a customs duty, and I said, okay, no problem. And we were looking at how we were going to get the money out, how we were going to launder it, and so I went through that with these fellows. We were going to rent a private plane, fly it out into Malta, and that was one way. Another way in discussion with them is that most of Africa, certainly in West Africa, and again, Ivory Coast just went through a civil war 6 months earlier. Most people don't have bank accounts. It's a cash-based society. So that's why the UN, as part of its donor aid money, says, look, we'll put money into your central bank, and you can use that to stimulate the economy. A lot of cocoa and other agricultural goods are produced, again, cash-based. So we provide this assistance. What was happening is these corrupt officials, and some with links to Islamic terrorism. In fact, the middleman was from Sudan. I had to have $2 million of kidnap insurance when I went in there because they knew I was, quote, Banker Bill. And so there was a very real threat of kidnapping because, could have just been, that was the whole purpose. But in fact, there was real money. It was $80 million sitting in a big box. And then they said, look, we want you to pay us $1.5 million to get it out of bond. I said, no problem. When it's on the back of the plane, I'll give you $2 million. And they said, nah, we kind of need it beforehand. I said, well, no, it's going to come after. And that's when the penny dropped, because I also noticed that the soldiers who were there guarding that money were also the same soldiers who I observed earlier guarding the central bank of Abidjan. It's the same uniform, different uniforms for different duties, I guess. And so I put two and two together that this was actually the UN donor aid money that was being used in a bait and switch scheme to sucker people into paying these sort of advance fees to get it out. But again, this was a significant problem. But along the way, before we knew at the end that this was a fraud, I'd already got a bank in one of the GCC, that's one of the main Arabic countries. 20%, they would launder the money into their banking system, charge 20%, would even get a private plane to fly it out. And about a year earlier, I was asked to assist another government because there was $13 billion of money and gold supposedly belonging to Gaddafi that had surfaced in Mali. And so I flew to Saudi Arabia, actually, and I went into a meeting with the ownership level of a very large Islamic bank. And we didn't know, all we knew was the money was from Gaddafi. I went through a negotiation. They didn't want, I said, look, if we can get this money, what's the fee to put it into the system? Well, we don't want to bring it directly into Saudi. We can bring it into an affiliate bank in United Arab Emirates. And the laundering fee on that was going to be 30%, of which I would have got my cut. We actually had somebody who was very close with the ruler of Saudi at that time. Not that he was a North African French fellow who was the one who was bringing the opportunity. And so I was there to verify and validate it. And again, the reason we didn't get to the next step, the Libyan colonel who had control over that was stuck in Aleppo in Syria. This was just before the civil war had started in Syria, but it hadn't quite gone full circle. But he got basically stuck in Aleppo. And then I flew out of Saudi. I wasn't in one of the major cities. I was actually in eastern Saudi Arabia, and I flew out. And then the very next day, by pure coincidence, the U.S. Senate Standing Committee on Investigations had come out with their report, which was the report that was used to fine HSBC for $1.9 billion for engaging in criminal money laundering, mostly out of Mexico, but also for their involvement with facilitating money flows from Islamic banking institutions that were directly linked to financing Al-Qaeda. So people think that this only happens from afar. I'm just one guy, and I was coming across this, with almost regularity. And one of the reasons that I've stopped it or slowed down is my wife said, "Bill, you're getting too old to keep doing this." I enjoyed the challenge, and to me it was fun, but now I think it's somebody else's turn to go take those risks. But education is the key. But anybody who thinks that this world doesn't exist is sadly deluded. And this to me is one of the problems that we have in the world today, especially in America and Canada, where we have these wonderful democracies. The problem is too many good people see the world as they want it to be, not as it really is.